morning, everybody. Now, I know work can be stressful, and if you're not careful, you can find yourself really feeling frustrated, especially if you're working in a toxic work environment. So today's conversation is going to dive deep into toxicity in the workplace. And actually our two guests know a thing or two about that. In fact, one of our guests started a trending hashtag last week and it got so many people talking. On the show, we've got Mutindi Mutua, who's an HR advisor and executive coach. And we've also got Sharon Okore, who's a policy analyst and who started this conversation. And we're about to dive into how toxicity in the workplace can really have a negative effect on you. So take a look. Sharon and Mutindi, how are you all doing today?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, good? Ready to talk about toxicity?
I don't even know.
And all that may come out of this conversation. I'm actually excited to hear from you ladies. And maybe we could start with you, Sharon. I'm curious to know what drove you to start the conversation and the hashtag toxic workspaces, because it drew a lot of conversation.
I was so overwhelmed. At some point, I felt like I should just round up everybody in the stadium and just hug them.
Yeah.
Because everybody was in so much pain. It's so painful. Even now, people are still sharing. So for me, it was just because I get a lot of content from Twitter.
Okay.
And I'm very people oriented, so people matter to me a lot. So when someone says something that's very unkind or very hurtful, I always feel it for some strange reason. So I'd seen a tweet about some lady talking about, she'd invited some unemployed youth. That's how she referred to them. Like some unemployed youth to a meeting, to an interview. And the person had said, I'm busy. Can I reschedule to Monday? Because it was supposed to be on a Thursday. Yeah. And I was like, this is such an unkind way of just looking at this, because she threw in a very condescending tone of, in this era of unemployment, somebody who's unemployed should really embrace this kind of opportunity. And then I'm just thinking, but just because you're unemployed doesn't mean you're idle, right? And just because you're unemployed doesn't mean also you're just available to pick yourself up and go for an interview. Like there's so many small fragments of someone getting themselves together and showing up that people should be aware of. And I just said, this person could not even have maybe transport to just get here. And how do you tell someone who wants to interview, hey, sorry, I don't have transport. Would you like to hook me up? How do you say that? You just need time to prepare. Then from that, I just felt like, what if I just had a conversation with the internet about what does toxicity looks like? Because this was one example of what toxic looks like, right? And I thought it was going to be just 2 people or 3 people. It was an unending flood of people talking about, even without just me being paid, the fact that people don't see me as a person in my workspace. They see me as extractive labor. They see me as an unending spreadsheet. They see me as an Excel sheet that's not filled. They see me as a PowerPoint presentation. They see me as a Word document that has errors. And I was just like, oh my God, that this is something that needs conversation. So, hence the toxic workspace.
Wow. Yeah. And of course you got a lot of people coming. A lot of people coming in and chiming in and adding. Even you contributed to the thread. So what are some of the key issues that you would that jump up at you that were consistent?
The lack of just respect for people. Right? And just respect, not just for your work, but just respect as a person, and because of that lack of respect, so even the tone I used to address you at work is now different. So I'm going to be condescending, or I'm going to be very belittling, or I'm going to be very abrasive or aggressive, right? And then also because of that lack of respect, there is absolutely no regard that people have lives. And the fact that these lives have a way of spillage into your workspace. Absolutely. Like if I'm having a bad day at home, best believe people are going to struggle with me a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why I need my moments to just take time out so I don't bring that to work.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in workspaces experience the hierarchy and how that becomes the thing of, I am your boss, Sharon, I'm telling you this and you're going to do this.
Yeah.
Whatever you think doesn't matter because I am your boss.
Right.
And then, you start wondering why we create such hierarchies at work and we don't invest in people. Because when you invest in people, at the end of the day, what you get is optimal production and optimal contribution and optimal work. So a lot of people talked about how they're even panicked and so anxious and literally mentally in spaces where they shouldn't be, because even when their boss calls over the weekend, they start to heavily breathe and they're
Yeah.
just like, what have I done? Because
Yeah.
it's never good.
Right.
You know, so you work with
Right.
bosses who've never told you, good job, you know, or that wasn't great, but you know what, it's okay.
Yeah.
We keep going
Yeah.
on. Because
Or-
everybody learns.
Yeah. Or
right?
is everything okay?
Is everything
Right.
okay? Like, are
Outside
you
of even
well?
know- yeah.
Right?
How are you?
Yes.
How are you
Because I've
really?
been managed before and I've managed people. And I've realized that it was harder managing people because there was levels of it.
Right.
I felt responsibility of having to make sure that my team was always 100%. And it was me taking time out of everyday work and just having coffee or having like drinks in the evening with one person and just saying, what's going on? Are you well? How is your family? You know, because it's not just about them showing up every Monday and just making me look
Getting
great.
to work, right,
No,
yeah.
it's about,
Right.
are they also feeling great while they're doing all these other things?
Yeah, yeah.
And then also being managed, you get to realize how just insecure bosses or insecure supervisors or people who just find insecurity in the way that they are and the way they exist, that manifests in the way they manage other people. So a lot of hurt is just, it's a cycle, it's sad.
Right,
It's really
Mutindi,
sad.
maybe you could break down how can leaders, managers, people in those positions create a culture that sees the person who comes into work and not just as a resource, but as a human being, so as someone, not something to make things work and make ends meet and make them money.
Yeah. So one of the ways you, as a leader, you need to do that is first to understand yourself.
Okay.
Because sometimes we get promoted to the highest level of incompetency. A lot of good people are promoted because they're performing well. So the fact that Sharon does this so well, then the next promotion comes from a managerial space or the supervisory space. We're like, Sharon should take that space and lead the people.
Right.
The question we don't ask is, has Sharon actually been equipped to lead teams? Has Sharon been given opportunities in the past to actually manage a team or manage a project or just work with people and interact with them, to know her strengths and weaknesses when it comes to working with people? So I usually start with the leader, where I say, I need to understand myself as a leader first. What space am I in? If I'm in toxic space at home, it might creep in at work if I'm not aware of it. So the first thing is for the leader to actually be self-aware of the space they are in and what they bring to the environment. Because it might have nothing to do with the workspace. It might be with things I'm dealing with. Maybe I'm in bad financial status, I'm going through a divorce, or my child is not performing well at school, and then I come and face some negativity in the office, and the next thing, it's spilling out of me. Right. So the first thing is just to understand where are we as leaders and what are we doing with ourselves as we deal with people.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to emotional intelligence.
Emotional
too.
intelligence.
So not just
yes.
like performing at work, but emotional.
So you have to understand yourself, understand the space you're in, and know how to cope. Right. Because if I'm being pushed, if let's say we need to downsize, and all that is wearing down on me, and I look at these people every day and I'm like, you're going home, all of you. How does that translate to? I have to keep that information to myself without getting stressed and passing on the stress to people who don't understand it. And they don't understand where I'm coming from. The other thing is we've created a space where we're so competitive. We have to perform. We call ourselves high performance organizations. It's a performance culture. What does a performance culture mean? What does it mean? Half the time it means you have to work at your best at all times. We're not machines. And even machines take time out and they're serviced. So when you're demanding it's a high performance culture, what does it mean? It means there are targets every day. I wake up and look at my numbers, they're not doing well. I'm not having discussions in regards to what's affecting the numbers, how can we deal with it? As I'm getting stressed, how do I relieve myself of that stress as an employee? So it's up to the leaders to create that environment where we're able to have conversations where people are not scared of saying, excuse me, I need help. I'm not able to perform, I'm stuck. Because you're supposed to be at your optimal level at all times. We are demanding that. Right. And it's gone into social media where you see people actually vent a lot on social media. You see people talking about their work day, and sometimes you DM people and do you want to talk? You know what I mean? Because they don't have a place to go to in the environment, the work environment, to talk about this. Right. So everybody has their own little struggles they're going through, and then we stop caring for each other. And we stop listening to each other.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting? I mean, we were saying earlier how if you're having a bad day at home or something else happens, it comes into the work. Exactly. But then whatever's happening at work, you transmit it into other aspects of your life, relationship, your health. Everything just ultimately is affected. And we spend so much of our time working too. Yeah. Now, I'd love to know from you ladies if you've ever experienced a toxic, been in a toxic work environment, and if so, how you dealt with it. Because I think there's many people who think, yeah, but this is tough, but what do I do? I need to make the money. My boss, makes the call. I can't stand up to her or him. Or so have you been in that situation? And from a personal perspective, what did you end up doing to try and change that?
I think I'm the worst type of person, because when I realized that I'm in a space that my mind and my brain cannot be free enough to just think, leave alone even just perform, just to think. Because every time I'm trying to think about something, or every time I'm trying to do something, then there's all this negativity coming in, I leave. And I've left because my system shuts down. Right? So what you're saying about knowing yourself, I can't work with negativity. I can do pressure. I can do the last minute craziness, but I can't do negative energy. My system shuts down. My brain refuses to think. And I remember there's a time I really worked in a very toxic space, to a point where I was supposed to introduce myself to some people and I forgot my name.
What?
Yes. And my colleague was like, you're Schaefer. And I was like, I'm Schaefer. That was how bad it was. Wow. That's how severe my system shuts down. So I can't do it.
Right.
So I wouldn't even know what, like how inhuman it is to stay there because you don't have a choice, and for people to constantly exploit you even though they know they are creating this space where you're just hurting as a person, right? So I leave. I usually leave, and I've left so many toxic spaces. And every time I leave, there's the lightness of feeling like I don't have to carry what is not my own to carry. Right. Because there's a lot in the workspace about people not performing, people not delivering, people not communicating about their non-performance or non-delivery that you feel is your burden, right? So leaving that space for me has always been a thing of also just jumping, because that's always one of my thing in how even my career has been. I always jump because I always know that, you know what, it's fine. I might crack my ribs or I might just learn how to fly, but I always leave.
And where does that come from? That kind of confidence in yourself and and that's understanding, self-awareness, really. Was it difficult the first time? Where did that come?
It was difficult the first time, and I regretted it completely, and I developed severe ulcers.
Really?
Yes.
So it's interesting to note that it's not as simple as just leave and it's go, but it's tough. That
it is.
Yeah.
It's tough leaving, especially if you need the money, right? Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, you can't survive in this Uhuru economy without money. The way it's set up, you just can't. Yeah. So even telling someone to leave, I understand, comes from a place of very high privilege. Yeah. But then I'm the kind of person who's left without even being paid. I remember working for someone at industrial area those days when I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm just figuring it out. And I left after 2 months of working every single day without pay. And I went home and I cried and I was like, what the hell am I doing with my life, right? But then staying there just meant that I was constantly in this space of illness, right? Because I was just taking in the medication, just migraines were unending, and I couldn't even just eat, right? I couldn't sleep. So then I just decided that, you know what, if this is gonna kill me, then it might as well, but it's not gonna kill me out of my own choice. Like, I'm not gonna allow it to kill me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But then also I understand that the confidence and the idea of just saying, I'm gonna go, and it's okay, I don't know where I'm going and I'm going to go, is also coming from a deep place of learning and allowing yourself to learn and knowing that it is never really the end, and having like a kick-ass mom like my mother who always says, you're not going to die from a job. There's so many things we could do. Like, if it's just about money, we could just be by the roadside and just sell something, you know, like if it's just about money. You know?
And you were not meant to suffer. You were not placed on this earth to suffer. Yeah, Mutindi, I'm curious to hear from you. What are some of those options that someone would have if they are in a toxic work environment? Like, what you can leave, yes, but what are some of the other things? Can you stand up? Can I like wave my finger in your face and be like, don't you dare talk to me? Or should I pace myself, write a note, dear sir, ma'am? Can you kindly, I mean, what are our options?
When I'm listening to her, I'm like, probably we've all encountered some level of toxicity in our lives. And I've been in that environment where I worked myself to a standstill.
Okay.
And one day I could not get out of bed. I'm awake, my eyes are open, but I have zero energy to just get out of the bed. The mind is willing, the body has refused.
Yeah.
So I was going through a total shutdown, and you're like the strong person, the person who's in HR, the one who tells everybody else how to cope, is all of a sudden not coping, And what happens is you think you're managing it, and it's just slowly chipping away at you. And it's all mental. It's all mental, and then it manifests physically, and then you start getting ill, or you don't get ill, because sadly we've learned the art of waking up and wearing a mask.
Right.
I used to tell people I have to wake up, wear my face, and wear a smile. I have to put it on and go to work and function. It doesn't matter how I'm feeling, because somebody has to get the ship sailing. And what I've realized is you also need to understand how strong or how weak you are. What can you take? What can't you take? What are the boundaries you create around yourselves? There's some people who if they come at me in the morning, then my whole day is gone. I won't function. You just know that person has a way of just touching the nerve that nobody else knows how to touch, and you're gone. So what do you do with that person? How do you react with them? The other thing I realized is if there's one person you realize is creating that environment, you learn who they are. You don't have to ask them, but you can ask people around them. Half the time you find it has nothing to do with them, everything has to do with them. It's nothing to do with you. So you might find it's something going on in their lives, or it's a secret they have in their lives, and they cover it up. Insecurity is a huge thing, especially for leaders who are not able to be vulnerable. They can't come and say, I fight with my wife every day. You guys just have to cut me some slack. You know what I mean? They're not allowed to do that. Now, where does that leave them? Yes. Or you guys, let's sit down and it's a huge thing. We have to figure it out ourselves. You know what I mean? As a team, So they carry your weight, their weight, and everything else, and bring it to you. So it's to your best interest to understand who this person is, what's making them behave the way they do, and that helps you even to forgive them. I remember there's somebody used to say, when I walk into that office, I've forgiven them 25% for what they're about to say today.
Wow, Mutindi, that was just crazy. Like hearing you talking about 25%, I think you really need to,
You need it for yourself and for them.
Yeah, you really need to know yourself. If you're already entering like, I forgive you, 25. The other 75, we'll figure out?
The other 75 gives you control.
Okay, gives you control.
Of the environment and the situation.
Okay.
Yes.
We have to take a quick break, but we'll be right back in a moment.